welcome to the executive on this fine sunny day, nearly. We're holding the meeting obviously via Teams. Without further ado, I'll hand over to Andrew Melhewish to just give us the ground rules for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. Good morning, everyone. And this is the executive for the 24th of November. This is the executive advisory meeting, and members today will be asked to make recommendations to the leader, who will then make the final decision in accordance with powers vested to him. Hopefully everything will work with the technology this morning. If there are any issues, we will adjourn the meeting, but fingers crossed for a trouble-free morning. We'll now do I also must say as well, the recording will be made available on the council's website within the next couple of working days. If you do need to attract the attention to speak, if you could please use the chat facility, because we don't always see the hands coming up. I'll hand back to the leader now, and we'll just do the normal roll call to make sure everybody's logged in and can see everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. We'll, as Andrew has mentioned, we'll just nip through the roll call. And if you could confirm whether you can see and hear everything that's going on, be very grateful. Start with myself. Yep, I can. That's always good news. Councillor Slocum is not here today, I believe. She's given her apologies. Still not well. We wish her all the best. Mike Caswell is sending his apologies. Go on straight then to Councillor Duddridge.
Yeah, good morning, Leader. Good morning, everybody. Councillor Lance Duddridge, and I can confirm I can see and hear everything clearly.
Thank you, Councillor Gilling.
Thank you, Leader. Good morning, all. Yes, I can. My name is Councillor Andrew Gilling, portfolio holder for housing, and I can confirm I can see and hear everything clearly. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Keane.
Good morning, everyone. Councillor Janet Keane. I confirm I can see and hear everybody and everything said. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll just go round. Mrs. Turner.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Alison Turner, Strategic Director and Section 151 Officer. Just to confirm, I can see and hear everything.
Thank you. Mr. Bamsey.
Good morning, everyone. Doug Bamsey, Deputy Chief Executive. I confirm I can hear and see everything.
Mr. Brown.
Good morning, everyone. Bob Brown, Chief Executive. I can confirm I can see and hear everything.
And Mrs. Wellman.
Good morning, everyone. Melanie Wellman, Assistant Director for Legal and Monitoring Officer, and I can confirm I can hear and see everything. Thank you.
Thank you. And Claire Fawn.
Claire Fawn, Corporate Relations Manager. I confirm I can see and hear everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, and then we have the various report authors and supporters who will be introduced as the meeting continues. Right, starting with apologies then.
Yes, thank you very much, Leader. Today we do have apologies from Councillor Slocum, Councillor Caswell and Councillor Mark Healy.
Thank you. And agenda item 2, minutes of the Executive Advisory meeting on the 13th of October to approve them as a correct record. They have been previously circulated. Are you happy that they are a true record?
So agreed.
Any opposition? No, thank you. Moving on then to declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest today?
Leader, a piece of advice on item 9, the prison leaver accommodation. This has been a subject of conversation, not deep investigation, at the Police and Crime Commissioner panel, also the strategic needs assessment panels, both of which I attend. I don't believe this causes a conflict of interest, merely a progression of a service delivery, but I would appreciate the legal advice.
That's correct. No interest needs to be declared.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, then, if that's it for now, moving on to urgent business, I have none, except to say that we have a report 11 on the agenda today. that I'm minded to postpone at this time, pending some further information and further investigation, and subject to members' approval. That will be my intention, but we'll come to that later. Without further ado, then going into public speaking, we have none. No. Straight into the agenda proper then, agenda item 6, which is the corporate performance report. Councillor Duddridge.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Yeah, very pleased to bring forward this report. Again, a very positive report on performance around the council. Performance is holding up very well considering we're still going through COVID and the amount of resources that were diverted to the Stronger Somerset work and LGR. But I'll hand over to Mr. Tandy to walk us through some detail. I'll be very happy to take questions afterwards if there is any. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duddridge. Thank you, Leader. So to give you an overview, to start with the corporate dashboard, high-level actions. Just the one reported as overdue, which is on a project which is part Hinckley funded at Mansfield Park. There's uncertainty as to whether this project will actually go forward. So at the moment, discussions are ongoing between SDC and third parties. It will remain overdue until these discussions have concluded and further information is received. The low number of actions reflected within our high-level actions does mean that obviously just the one overdue gives quite a high percentage, but we are still within target. And work ongoing with the business as usual task group means that there will be a number of projects and activities that aren't currently reflected on the system that will be moved on to there. So we should be monitoring, that's the intention, we should be monitoring absolutely everything that's happening. And for those of you that don't know, the business as usual task group is all about ensuring that what we're delivering between now and April 23 is the key things. So in effect, looking to make sure that resources are put in the right places. On to operational actions. Since the report was published, we have actually had a full set of operational actions approved at management team. These have been quite long awaited due to various circumstances. But in effect, what we now have is a much clearer picture of what's happening operationally across the council. Hopefully, in the next report, it will be a much better reflection of what's happening. I think my report says 48 actions. However, we now have a full nearly 200. There's 192 actions live on the system, which is actually a significant amount lower than previous years, but that was intentional. We really wanted to ensure that, again, with the work that's reflected on the system is the key information that needs to be reported to management team and to the assistant directors on a monthly basis. Audit recommendations, not a huge amount to say there. They're on track. We only have 4 overdue. I think the report said 5, but one of those has since been completed. 2 of the overdue actions are high level or high risk, however you want to word it, which will be reported to, assuming they're still overdue at the time of reporting, will be reported to audit and standards at the next opportunity. The performance indicators, this is the real kind of key thing in this report, I think, in that we have slipped slightly. We are down to 77% of our indicators on target. Last year, we managed to deliver more than our threshold of 82.5% of indicators on target throughout the whole year. And that was almost surprising considering the circumstances we were under. And I think it was kind of inevitable that eventually we were going to fall below that threshold that we do actually set ourselves. Looking at some of the red and amber indicators, every single one of them has the reasons against them. So when you look through the detail of those indicators, which are listed in quite a number of pages of the report, those reasons are listed there. So I think the reasons given are fair, and we have to kind of expect that this is the way it's going to potentially be for the time being. However, again, the business as usual task group is going to be undertaking a full review of our service standards and performance indicators, just to ensure that we are focusing on the key important areas. Also, in addition, one of the red indicators was for benefits, and I have seen October's data for benefits, which is very promising. It shows that we are back within the 10 working days for processing new claims. The manager of benefits is confident that this means that, with various other circumstances, i.e. they have a number of staff back in place that they had lost or were being assigned elsewhere, they feel that Q3 should be back into the green. Again, with customer services, the abandoned calls we were off target for in Q2. October's data shows that we are back under 5% of calls being abandoned. So again, promising information coming from there. Happy to take any questions on that suite of information.
Right, members, any comments or questions? Clearly, we said some time ago that there would likely to be legacy issues from COVID and the local government reorganisation process. And it's surprising that those small areas of slight underperformance at this time have only started coming through at this point. So we're aware of them, and we will support them in bringing them back on target as soon as possible. Councillor Keane.
Thank you, Leader. I do understand the reason for this, but from time to time I do get the Pentana warnings that something is overdue. But when I look at the detail of it, it seems almost an unfair flagging up of the red, because the particular officers managing that topic either have had no opportunity due to the extraordinary circumstances of the last year, or other matters are completely outside their control. And sometimes that red flag comes up almost on the deadline, so it doesn't really give them an opportunity to go over things. And we know that all of our officers are stretched beyond what we would normally expect. So is there any way of adjusting the way it is reported to give more leeway, or even to override? Because if someone's going to look back and see that there has been red, I think that's an unfair critique.
I mean, it's a tricky issue. I think it's important that we as portfolio holders and the officers concerned are aware that it's overdue. And I think that flag up at that stage is an important part of the process. But Mr. Tandy, you wanted to come in there.
Yes, so just to confirm, triggers are sent. So what Councillor Keane is referring to is a trigger that she's been received via email. The portfolio holders only receive those when something goes red. The officers involved get triggers far in advance of those. So it's not that the officers don't get reminded in advance, they do. It's just that the portfolio holders triggers don't appear until later. If you'd like that to be amended so that portfolio holders get an earlier trigger, then that's absolutely fine. But my thinking on that is that if we do that, the officer may be intending to update that within the 2-week time frame that they've been reminded themselves. So it might be an unnecessary trigger that you're then receiving.
Right, thank you. I'll go to Councillor Duddridge and then Mr. Brown.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Yeah, just on what Councillor Keane has raised, I quite understand what she's saying, but I think the system we got at the moment is possibly the best system we could have. You'll never get a perfect system for flagging up data, but the fact that the officers receive it in advance, it gives them a chance of either remedy the situation or put in for a change request, and then the amount of issues are resolved then is quite large, and then the stuff that flags up for portfolio holders or things that might need a word between the portfolio holder offer and the relevant officer. So I think personally the system we've got running at the moment is probably the best way to keep going with this.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Leader. Just a couple of things, just picking up on the point that a number of people have made now. The data that we're reporting is oftentimes being collated by the service itself, and the manager is aware of, that real-time information and trying to deal with that as we go through. So, just to reassure people that we are aware in real terms of, how we are performing on a day-to-day basis and trying to address some of those issues, which brings me on to, what are we doing to address some of those issues? Well, as has already been pointed out, we have a number of issues that are coming at us collectively. Obviously, local government reorganisation, recovering from COVID, and we are experiencing, I think, a significant issue around recruitment, because I know there's a number of posts that members approved should be filled, and we're trying to fill a number of posts. So we are struggling in terms of maintaining our the amount of officers that we need to do some of this stuff, and we're actively trying to deal with some of those issues. So that will play in slightly to that. I think it's worth commenting as well around the revs and bends issue. We're also going through a system of where we are rewriting our in-house systems, and that is diverting some of the activity from each of the services into assisting in rewriting those systems to make them as efficient and as relevant to their process needs as possible. So once again, that's impacting on activity, but we set it as a priority, the rewriting of those systems, because if we get them into a modern environment, I think it'll put officers, our services, the efficiencies that we get from providing those services in the best possible place for the new council when it comes into being. So there's a whole series of pressures in there that I think are playing in. I think performance has been maintained at a pretty good level. The fact that the revs and bends activity is coming back up to level is reassuring, but we are actively trying to support those services in maintaining those systems within, as I say, the growing number of challenges that we've got against resources and other things. But we will keep an active eye on it and make sure that we're giving the support to the officers at the right place, because I'm sure it'll become increasingly stressful for them as we go between now and the next 16 months to the new council.
Yep, thank you. Well said. Mr. Bamsey.
Thank you, Leader. Just Simon very ably talked about business as usual and how we're thinking through projects and tasks, and indeed for that matter performance, and I'll just say that we're going to bring a presentation to the member drop-in on the 1st December. Indeed, we're doing a staff drop-in on the 8th, just to explain how we're managing business as usual in between now and April 23.
Right, thank you. Any other comments or questions from members? No. Okay. Are we happy to proceed under the guidance of the two recommendations on report on agenda item 6 then? Any against? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you very much. And Mr. Melhuish.
Thank you very much, members. So as that was unanimously carried, that will be over to you, Leader, to confirm that you're happy.
Right, thank you, and I'm happy to support the recommendations. Right, thank you. Moving on then to agenda item 7. Struggling to scroll through as my OneNote seems to have ceased its life. And I believe this is back over to Councillor Duddridge.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Similarly, a positive report. Mr. Tandy has the detail. I just flag up the exceptional work from the planning department again, joint first nationally for major development. Also, there's some information on there about the ongoing Northgate project, which seems to be progressing well. Mrs. Turner's here I think if anybody's got questions on the financial data, but I'll hand over to Mr. Tandy, but again, very happy to take any questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Duddridge. So yes, the usual suite of information provided within the Appendix A, headlines for which are listed on page 2. A couple of things to note. Under the HR stats, our total staff has risen to 408. It had been sat around about the 400 mark for the last 12 to 24 months. But has now gone up to 408. The turnover also for this year is significantly higher than for the same time last year. I think that's to be expected. Again, last year was particularly low, but I mean, for want of a better way of putting it, who's going to leave an organisation in the middle of a pandemic? I mean, I guess some people did, but it was expected that we wouldn't have such a high turnover last year. The addition of the Northgate Yard section provided by Stuart Martin, who is the project manager for that piece of work, a huge piece of work. So I don't know if he's present to answer any questions on that, if anyone has any questions, but I'm sure there will be somebody who will be able to answer questions on that if necessary. And finally, as Councillor Duddridge said, planning, we're pleased to report that they continue to deliver well above our statutory targets. And also just an extra mention is that yesterday our planning team actually won the RTPI Southwest Award for the best planning team. So I think that's good recognition on the basis of the many years that we've been doing so well in our planning service. Happy to take any questions on my part before we hand over to Ben Lane of Homes in Sedgemoor.
And I would just add our formal congratulations to the planning team for the sterling work and the success that they have achieved in achieving an award, and it was alongside public and private sector entrance to it, which to me, if a public sector can compete in that area, then we're not doing too badly, and well done for that. Thank you. Any questions before we move on to Homes in Sedgemoor? No, okay. Well, we can always come back if something occurs to you, and I'll just hand over now to Ben Lane. Ben.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. I think you have in front of you our Q2 Homes in Sedgemoor performance. It's in a sort of more summarised format than perhaps the executive might have received previously, and hope it remains useful. I think, as indicated in the report, we're able to provide a more detailed suite of KPIs if that information is required by anybody. But if I'm able just to perhaps just highlight a few things as we run down through, you'll see we've got 53 KPIs that we kind of monitor in Homes in Sedgemoor. 27 of those sit within the management agreement document that we have with yourselves. We've got at the end of September, the end of Q2, 17 KPIs identified as red. The most latest performance that's just been produced for October has indicated 15 KPIs at red, and the trend seems to be that we'll be expecting that to reduce down to somewhere close to about 10 come the year end 21-22. That compares, I think, to 19 KPIs at red at the end of last year, just for comparative purposes. Hopefully the narrative sort of speaks for itself that we've included beneath it, but we've tried to identify some of the sort of challenges that we've been facing in the first sort of 6 months of this particular year. What we are currently doing internally are deep dives into those areas of performance where performance has been at red for 2 months in succession. We're halfway through that sort of process, and we look to conclude that in mid-December with a couple more rounds with our internal colleagues to get into some of the detail. What that will then leave us with is an overview of opportunities for us to potentially look to deploy additional resources into areas to hopefully improve performance. But we need to do that, if you like, in a considered way as we take on board each of the areas of performance that we're reviewing, really. So once we've completed that deep dive exercise, I think we've better place to be able to identify how we might want to utilize our resources to see if we can improve that position beyond the sort of 10 KPIs that I indicated that we think we're currently heading towards at the end of the year as red. We're in the moment we've had some challenges around getting hold of levels of kind of customer satisfaction feedback. We've introduced a new sort of technology, VoiceScape, to help us with this particular issue. That system, if you like, is bedding in at the moment, and we're hoping that in future months we'll be getting higher levels of feedback from our customers, which you appreciate is a really key for us to sort of hear from our customers in terms of how the services we're delivering are being received, and we take that feedback and we learn from it and work with our contractors as we need to hopefully improve performance going forward. We are sort of finding in areas, particularly as we work with our contractors, where they're sort of struggling with the new operating environment, be that in terms of supply of materials or supply of labour. I think it's not unique, obviously, to us as an organisation. It's across the sort of sector and across the country in a way. So again, our dialogues continue with all of our contractors to sort of see what options exist to ensure that we can maintain sort of supply chains. We include in our KPIs, and it's attached as an appendix, sector analysis that we participate in with Housemark, which is an organisation that gathers sort of data from across our sector. We've actively taken part in these exercises over the last sort of 18 months and have found the information that we get from them very helpful. That's included, and what I hopefully it provides yourselves is an assurance that our performance actually remains strong compared to our sort of sector peers. So we found that internally very helpful to ensure that we're sighted on how well we're doing in comparison to others. Probably one of the real good news stories that I want to sort of just flag up is the issue around our kind of compliance. You would pick up from the narrative that we've been green for our compliance since June now, and that's maintained over the last 4 months. So that's a reflection of some really great work that's been going on in the teams to get us to that point, and obviously is a critical area of our business to make sure that we maintain that level of performance activity. We're also very, very pleased to have been awarded IIP Gold back in the summer as well. Again, a good testament to the work of our HR team and the wider teams in that regard. I'll happily take any questions that people might have on any specifics, but hopefully that provides an overview of where we are currently at the end of Q2.
Thank you. I've got to say, I mean, I appreciate the report and the style of the report and how it's changing. Certainly more informative and more relevant to, I think, what we're interested in and actually how the business is doing. So I'm grateful for that. Members, any comments and questions? Councillor Gilling, is that a pensive, I'm about to speak?
No, it's not a pensive one. It's a request to speak, if I may. I just want to congratulate Ben and the team from Homes in Sedgemoor on the clarity of their reporting and also the improvements that we've seen already. I think it's a first-class description of how things are unfolding. Clearly, compliance is another of my favourite topics at the moment, but nevertheless, I'm delighted that we're still in the green zone for that area. And I think it's important that we maintain that close proximity with safety that we are obliged to by law, by statute. But nevertheless, I can only applaud the work that's been going on within the organisation. And thank you very much for that.
Yeah, good. Yeah, echoed. Yeah. certainly the compliance work is vitally important. And as we know, and I've seen around the country, non-compliance can get you in a great heap of trouble. Yeah. Any other comments, questions from members? No. In that case, there are 2 recommendations. Are members happy to follow those recommendations? Any against? Any abstentions? And as if by magic, Mr. Melchior's.
Thank you very much, Leader. As that was a unanimous recommendation, it's over to you, Leader, to confirm that you're happy with the recommendations.
Yep, I'm happy. And I will also mention that homes in Sedgemoor have suffered like us during the last 18 months or so through the COVID situation. It's not made operating particularly easy, but I think they've come through as well as we have through this with certainly gold stars. Thank you. Thank you. Right. Moving on then, members, to the next agenda item, which is write-offs, agenda item 8. And we're joined by, I think, somewhere, Anne-Marie Hardy is here somewhere, I think. Yep, well done. Members will note slight change in the style of the report. I think it's a little more comprehensive, a little more relevant, and actually quite a lot more interesting, which I thank Anne-Marie for before we start. So without further ado, I will also make note to members that item 2, I'm sure Anne-Marie will mention the debt respite breathing space scheme, which is in existence, I think is the best way of describing that. Without further ado, over to you, Anne-Marie.
Thank you, Leader. Good morning, everybody. I'm not quite sure interesting is the right word, but thank you very much. Okay, this report is headed by about the £4,000 write-offs, but is also the update on the respite scheme and the performance measures that we've got within council tax and our sundry debtor performances. So first things first is over £4,000 write-offs for the first 2 quarters of this financial year. Within all of the services within Sedgemoor and homes in Sedgemoor, we've got processes and policies in place to make sure that we've got robust recovery processes for any debt that is owed to the council. Unfortunately, there's always going to be a very small percentage of the money owed to us that for whatever reason we're unable to collect. So the first part on the agenda, and I do apologise, the way the table came out isn't the easiest to follow, is a request to write off £71,487.56 of debt that we've been unable to recover. And those are mainly for council tax and non-domestic rates, and 1 from our sundry debtor system. And these are as a result of either the debtors moving out of area and we've been unable to trace them, the debtors unfortunately passing away, or they've taken some form of insolvency action. So the first part of my report is asking for approval for those debts to be written off. And then the second part is a run through of what we currently know in regards to the debt respite scheme. Debt respite scheme, or breathing space, which is what most people refer to it as, is a scheme that came into force in May this year. It's a part of the insolvency rules within the country. Unfortunately, the idea originally was we were going to have the debt respite scheme, and then following on from that, some statutory repayment rules, so that they would come back to us with a repayment plan, and that was in law, we had to follow it. Unfortunately, though that part of the equation's not in there at the moment, we're expecting that in due course. So what we've currently got is a breathing space scheme that is all managed via the insolvency service. There is a portal that we have access to and the debt advisors have an access to, where all this information is held so that we're aware of who's gone into a respite scheme and they can pass on information to us. It's still in its early stages, it still has a few hiccups, but generally starting to work. So what is debt respite scheme? If you've got problem debt of whatever sort and you're struggling, you can ask a debt advisor. It has to be a formal debt advisor, so the likes of Step Change, CAB. You can go to them and say, I'm struggling, I've got all these debts, I don't know where to go. They will have a conversation with that person, and what they will do is they'll put them into a breathing space. So under normal circumstances, most people can ask for a standard breathing space, which means that any action on any debts that they owe is held for 60 days. They still have to pay their ongoing liabilities, so they still have to pay their rent, they would still have to pay their council tax if they're not in arrears, but any debts that they've got that breathing space from any action happening for 60 days, so they can have a conversation with their debt advisor to see what can we realistically do, what help do you need, so that they can move forward. So that's the standard breathing space. There is also something called a mental health breathing space. So if someone's going through and has an approved mental health professional and they're going through a mental health crisis, they can have a breathing space and it lasts for as long as that mental health issue is going on, and those people can have them as and when they need them. Ordinarily, most people can only ask for one of these every 12 months. At the moment, or as of the end of September, we had 24 people within Sedgemoor that had gone onto a breathing space, which affected 55 individual debts. 7 of those were excluded because they had attachments to benefit or earnings in place. Those attachments don't stop during a breathing space. Administratively, it makes sense for them not to stop, because we would be telling an employer to stop the deductions and then asking them to start them again, so those ones don't get affected. Majority was council tax debt, and a small amount of it was housing benefit debt, and then a few of them came through to us that should have been homes in Sedgemoor. It's taking a while for the scheme to work properly. As of end of September, I'd only had one debt solution come through from the debt advisors. They're starting to gradually come in now, but it's going to be a learning process between all of us. And basically today was just to let everybody know that that scheme is out there. If they have anybody that has come to them saying, I'm struggling with my debts, feel free, ask, or look on Step Changer's website, CAB's websites, the information's all out there. Any questions on breathing space before I move on to collection rates?
Members, any questions?
I'll try and answer them. I might not know all the answers.
I mean, it's one of those situations that will evolve.
It will evolve.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I may have gone grey as well at the same time. So next part is our recovery rates and for council tax, business rates and sundry debts. As you can see from the information I put on there, I won't bore you with reading it all out. We are, for council tax, we are roughly the same place as we were this time last year. Our recovery rates haven't really changed. So we're still doing really, really well at collecting council tax from our customers. With the pandemic and some of the work that we normally do being put on hold, we've had a chance to review our credit processes. So we've seen just over £500,000 worth of credits go back to customers. So that's money held on council tax accounts that's due back to them. Our business rates, collection rates, slightly less than this time last year, but not by anything. It was only 2.78%. And then for our sundry debtors, same again, we're pretty much on a par as we have been in previous years, although we are slightly up this year on the amount of invoices we've raised, but also the monies that we've got has also increased. And from me, that's everything, unless you've got any questions.
Right, I'm sure there'll be tons of questions, Anne-Marie.
I don't mind.
Members, any questions or comments? Please speak now.
Oh, I've got one.
Councillor Keane.
Good morning.
Leader. Being boringly pedantic at the very beginning of your paper, it's debts greater than £4,000 for the purposes of transparency and clarity. Would it be helpful to include in that sentence greater than 4,000 but less than a particular figure according to our standing orders or policy, as a sort of protection for everyone?
Sorry, I don't quite know what you mean, because I'm asking for anything that's over 4,000 to be written off. So, sorry,
Well,
I'm being daft.
If you have a limit, then perhaps someone could borrow a couple of million and have that written off, unless there is a wording which gives
We don't have an upper
over
limit.
4,000 but less than XYZ.
We don't have an upper limit.
I said pedantic.
Because if we had an upper limit, then if there was a large debt that was irrecoverable, it would stay on the books forever.
Which was not to be thought of.
But it would still be, as it is, if we do have a large debt, it would be reported through this process and through this meeting, which is our responsibility to monitor. I don't know whether Mrs. Turner or Mrs. Wellman wishes to make a comment. I'm sure one does.
Yeah, I'll make a comment, Duncan, as you've asked. Yeah, no, Anne-Marie's quite right. In terms of the financial regulations, as a Section 151 officer, I can write off all debt under £4,000, so that doesn't have to come to members for approval. Any debts above £4,000, and there isn't an upper limit, does need to come to members. But that's the reason why they come to members, because they could be higher amounts and they might need more scrutiny. So yeah, this is following the protocol within our financial regulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is our safety net by coming here. Mrs. Wellman.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. Effectively, you need to make sure you are managing your debts, and the way that obviously we deal with it is to bring them through to members so it's very open and transparent. You wouldn't want to leave debts on your books for a long period of time. So this is, the most appropriate way of dealing with it.
Thank you.
Okay, Janet. And the other side of the story is that they may be off books at this time, but if circumstances change in the future, we will pursue the recovery of that debt. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? No. Okay. In that case, there are 4 recommendations. Are members in opposition to any of the 4 recommendations? Are you abstaining? Right. Mr. Melchior.
Thank you very much, Leader. As that was clearly unanimous, it's over to you now to confirm that you're happy to support the 4 recommendations set out in the report.
I confirm I am happy, and to thank Anne-Marie for a report today. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right, moving on then to agenda item 9, prison leaver accommodation project. We got Councillor Gilling. We are joined, because I've seen Sarah somewhere. Sarah Stillwell. So, Councillor Gilling.
Thank you, Leader. I am extremely relieved that Sarah is with us today, because she'll be able to answer the detailed questions which I can't possibly come close to. But this report is very well written and a very important topic that we need to discuss. A, because it's a shared responsibility between ourselves and Somerset West and Taunton, or SWAT as I prefer to refer them as. It is an important thing, and I think we must bear in mind equally importantly that this is a pilot project for a 3-year period, and those leaving prison are obviously a huge burden on society, having been so for however long they've been at Her Majesty's pleasure. Nevertheless, it is an important element of our community that we have to be involved with. Equally, we are screaming from this report comes the 2 principal projects or elements that we are statutorily obliged to resist, and that is homelessness and rough sleeping. Clearly, the 2 go to a degree hand in hand, but nevertheless, we are obliged to prevent homelessness as far as is humanly possible. And the gentlemen that leave Her Majesty's hospitality, we can put it no more than that, are a responsibility of ours to maintain and keep them clear of any form of risk of homelessness. County boundary lines are another problem with which we are faced, and I think in equal measure between both districts, as long as districts exist. But nevertheless, it is an important part of our responsibilities, and we must adhere to that. And at that point, Leader, I think I should hand over to Sarah, who can answer any detailed questions that maybe presented us with. And I will hand over to Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will say in the handover that we also have a responsibility to do what we can to facilitate non-reoffending, because that's by taking care of all our residents, wherever they come from, to us, that helps in that aim. Sarah.
Indeed. Thank you, Leader. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Gilling. Thank you, Leader. I think one of the things that we notice in my service is that when we're dealing with gentlemen that have quite often ended up in quite an unfortunate situation with quite significant drug and alcohol issues, physical and mental health issues, at that point they then start to cost us an awful lot of time and money in terms of resources and seeking accommodation. A lot of them have been in and out of prison, so it's that revolving door. Quite often it's just petty crime, it's nothing high level, but it does result in times when they're in prison and then they're released from prison, at which point quite often their options are quite limited because they wouldn't necessarily fall into a priority need category, so we wouldn't have a duty to offer them temporary accommodation. Those resources are quite limited. Quite often it can lead to them getting involved with gangs, with county lines, just with associates that haven't got their best interests at heart. It results in them reoffending and another stay in prison. And so what I would like to propose is that if we could set some funding aside to get some specialist accommodation for those individuals, and we can help them at that first point of contact and get them some support with Julian House, who specialise in prison release, that would then stop that revolving door. So it would have a huge impact on their sort of life going forward. They wouldn't be trapped in that cycle of committing crime and homelessness. It would also then have a better impact on our communities and less antisocial behaviour. And would enable us to for these people to kind of move on in a reasonably successful way, despite what they might have got involved with previously, rather than just seeing that pattern just keep repeating itself time and time again.
Right, thank you. And I'd say again that this is the district council going above and beyond its roles necessarily and responsibilities, and is exactly the type of thing that a good council should be doing. Councillor Keane.
Thank you very much. I thank Sarah for the forward-looking way this report has been written. It is, as Andrew has said, we have statutory responsibilities, but this is the 21st century. We have moral responsibilities as well for people who've had a pretty poor start in life and a continuation, very damaged people. This also very much chimes with the ambitions outlined by the new Police and Crime Commissioner to break the cycles that cause the problems, because the cost of not doing it is probably going to be a lot greater than this initial cost, which may hurt. And everyone has got some good in them somewhere, and I would urge members to accept this as an excellent forward-looking principle, and hopefully that the successes that Sarah's had with the rough sleepers during the worst of the COVID can be repeated with this, so that people can be rehabilitated back into society. And because it's never too late to start, but I do believe in this day and age we are obliged to make that start. Thank you.
Thank you, and I think this follows on from our Together One Team ethos, where we've had interventions at an early stage jointly with others, where we've had significant benefit to the clients and customers that we have been able to supply service to. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Leader. I think this is a really important report for us, and I think a really important approach, because there's a personal cost and a cost to society of not getting this right. Because those who are discharged from prison need to be given the opportunity to rehabilitate and move on, and not either further reduce their own life chances by not having an opportunity to go to a home or re-offend, and then the damage that does to wider society, the cost that places on other support services, the police and others in terms of managing this issue. So an early intervention here and be able to support those people coming out of prison, I think is important for us, because not only will it assist in the personal cost to those people who have been discharged from prison, but also assist us and the other agencies that we work in preventing further and greater work and cost down the line. So potentially there's a double win here for people's personal issues and for us more widely in the public sector. So I think it is a timely and important report.
Yeah, agree. Right, members, any other comments or questions?
Leader, if I may just add one more small thought. This is nothing to do with the report as such, but recently the press have been reporting the incidents of growing numbers of children in children's homes. And I think this is possibly where some of the problems emanate. And the costs that we've alluded to on various situations are eye-watering. When you consider that the national average, I believe it is, and Sarah will correct me if I'm wrong, that to keep a child in a care home, not a care home, but a privately run children's home, is around about £4,000 a week. Now that to me is a startling figure, and I believe, and it's a very frightening figure as well. And I think that will probably help some people realise just how critical the kind of actions that we're proposing today are extremely valuable, and we should be applauded for taking those steps. Thank you, Leader.
Right, thank you. Yeah, as you say, slightly off topic, but relevant nonetheless. Thank you. Members, any other comments or questions? Then we have the one recommendation, agree to the delivery of this service. Anyone against? Anyone wishing to abstain? No? Well, then just passing over to Andrew Melhuish, I'll say thank you very much to Sarah and Councillor Gilling. I mean, I think it's a great thing to be going on a 3-year trial, and I hope it's successful.
Thank
Andrew.
you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Leader. That was a unanimous recommendation to yourself, with the one recommendation in the report to approve the funding from the Homeless Prevention Fund.
Yeah, and I'm happy to support that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mute button. Right, members, moving on then to agenda item 10, which is the Community Renewal Fund. We're joined by Nathaniel Lucas. Thank you very much. I'm deeply appreciative of him being here and in the absence of the Deputy Leader, who will be able to give us a full and comprehensive account of this renewal fund. Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone as well. So the purpose of this paper today is really to seek ratification and approval from the Executive to enable the Assistant Director for Inward Investment and Growth, in consultation with the Section 151 Officer, Monitoring Officer and Portfolio Holder for Inward Investment and Growth, to make contractual appointments to the value of over £250,000. This delegation, though, I should just make it clear, is in relation to projects that are funded externally, and is specifically related to the Community Renewal Fund, the Bridgewater Town deal, and the Levelling Up Fund, which we'll be making submissions for early next year. In addition to this, I did write in the paper that, about a placeholder really, and a discussion with the executive members just around the direction of future Levelling Up Fund submissions as a result of not all of the Community Renewal Fund submissions being successful. I just would like the executive to note that since writing this, officers have been working extremely hard in the background on a way forward for both submissions, and we do believe we've got a way forward now. So I will provide an update on where we are in terms of those, but also, of course, happy to take any questions and thoughts and so on if required. So in terms of the recommendations themselves, so the first one is really just to note the information contained within the report and the reasoning behind the request for delegated powers for the aforementioned officers and portfolio holder, and also to approve option 1, which is the delegated powers for the assistant director and the aforementioned officers and portfolio holder to be able to make contract awards of £250,000 plus, specifically related to external funding, like I've said, in relation to the Community Renewal Fund, the Bridgewater Town Deal and the Levelling Up Fund as well. In terms of background, government funding or government external funding is a great benefit to ourselves and other local authorities, but what it does come with is strict spend and delivery timeframes, and that provides added challenges and above the usual risks and issues associated with project delivery. And a very current example of this is the Community Renewal Fund, which Sedgemoor District Council submitted a number of bids for earlier in the year, and confirmation was provided on the 3rd of November that we had been successful for one of our submissions, the Bridgewater Carnival workshops. And what that will do is support the capital drawdown from the Bridgewater Town Deal and provide funding for design and feasibility project work around that particular project. The time frame for delivery of this, no surprise, is exceptionally short. At the time of writing this report, it was understood to be March 22 that everything had to be kind of done and dusted, but that has now changed slightly, with government confirming that it is now a June deadline. It's still a very short time frame though, so we absolutely need to move forward at pace. So currently the executive is required to approve and award contracts on the basis they exceed 250,000. But I think it's important for members to note that invariably government-related funding projects will exceed that threshold on the basis that government will be looking for projects that are of scale and are transformational, which is unlikely to be achieved for anything under that threshold. As it stands at the moment, as per the SDC's constitution, it's for the executive to award contracts. But what that does is it adds additional pressures on delivery of projects on the basis that the executive do not meet on a weekly or even bi-weekly basis. So to mitigate this impact, it is proposed to receive ratification on a delegated authority approach to this. But I do want to make it clear that there will be all the normal safeguards in place from a procurement perspective, obviously legal perspective, but also the additional governance in the sense that any delegated decisions, there's a record taken to executive as well. So just to understand that normal safeguards are in place. In terms of the current position, so as I've already said, the CRF Community Renewal Fund, I should say, projects were confirmed on the 3rd of November. So we need to start to move very quickly in terms of being able to kind of meet those strict timeframes outlined earlier in the report. But also it's about looking to the future as well. So there will be significant Bridgewater Town Deal projects coming forward, and also, as I've already alluded to as well, the Levelling Up Fund as well, and the potential projects that will come out of that. So the options are ultimately to ratify, or option 1 is to ratify the proposal in terms of delegated responsibility. And what that will do is it will limit the impact of delays on project delivery on the basis that the appointments over 250,000 can be done outside of the executive reporting timeframe. The other option for members is to reject this request and stick with the current approval mechanism. But like I've already outlined in the report, that does put additional pressure on the delivery phase of projects, and also limits the ability to deliver the outputs and outcomes in the allotted timeframes as well. I won't run through the different comments. I trust that you've all read those, and also the kind of the risks associated with it, although happy to go through in more detail if people wish. But I just want to kind of sum up in terms of the conclusions really. So external funding from government offer substantial and wide-ranging benefits. Therefore, for us to be able to facilitate delivery of the outcomes and outputs in a timely manner will only benefit residents and businesses of the district in a much better way. So that is the report itself. Happy to take questions on this in the first instance, and if members are happy, and then go on to Levelling Up Fund, or I can move on to the Levelling Up Fund bit as well. So happy to be guided by yourselves.
Okay, well, I'll just make the comment on this. I think we're all grateful for the safeguards that are in place on option one. I think we're all aware of the timeframes that government tend to work to at the moment, and the speed with which decisions are needed to be made and action taken. So I think, I doubt that many members would object given the safeguards that are in place. So we can take questions at the end, but let's move on to the levelling up. Thank you.
Okay, excellent, thank you. So in terms of the Levelling Up Fund, obviously the Community Renewal Fund submissions, a number of them were unsuccessful, and that's absolutely disappointing, as those projects were linked directly with the Levelling Up Fund in terms of providing design and feasibility work, and ultimately kind of providing the foundations for successful bids. And what this has led to is ultimately a shortfall on the basis that we did not get those CRF monies. Also important to understand as well that with the recent budget announcement has come the first kind of confirmation from government in terms of when round 2 of the Levelling Up Fund will start, and we were notified that it's spring 2022. Unfortunately, no confirmation beyond that from government. So whilst we have a kind of a target season, we don't have any more detail on that, but at least we have got something to aim for. So what that says is that we certainly need to move forward at pace to ensure that we can meet those time frames. Officers have spent some time since me producing this report in terms of reviewing available budgets, and we have access outside of the Community Renewal Fund, because that wasn't successful, to a significant war chest. Not as much as what we would have had if the Community Renewal Fund had been successful, but we are confident that what we do have will be able to ensure that we have successful Levelling Up Fund submissions, and it's a mix of funding that we'll be drawing on. So there is capacity funding from the Levelling Up Fund. There is some internal SDC budgets from the Inward Investment and Growth Service. We'll also be drawing on the elements of the Welcome Back Fund as well, which is government funding, and then finally as well the COMP funding, which is the COVID outbreak mitigation funding as well. Again, I'm sure members are all aware, but just to provide a little bit of background, so the Levelling Up Fund is based on constituencies. So for Sedgemoor, there are we get two bites of the cherry, I suppose, because we have two MPs across our boundaries. So the first one that I'm just going to run through just quickly is James Heapy's constituency. So with this, officers have taken the view that we take advantage of the SCAPE framework procurement route, which ultimately is a direct procurement route to market, which is a much quicker, and we don't have to go through the longer term kind of procurement approach. This is an approach that has been reviewed by our own procurement teams internally, and also by our legal teams as well, and they are satisfied in terms of the approach. Because it's a cross kind of district project, we've also had conversations with Mendip District Council as well, and they are happy with this approach as well. So subsequent to that decision and approach, we have been in conversations with Stantec, who I would hope you are all familiar with and have done a significant amount of work across the district and the local area. They have a great local knowledge as well, so we really believe they're an asset, and we work well with them as well. So that's certainly our preferred route, which we think will be successful. And also the other benefit of Stantec is that they have had significant success in the Levelling Up Fund Phase 1 submissions. Therefore, they bring a wealth of expertise and knowledge in terms of producing bids and that kind of design and feasibility work that ultimately will feed into the final submission as well. So absolutely satisfied with that approach. And then the Ian Liddell Granger constituency, which is working with Somerset West and Taunton, we are taking a different approach on the basis that we believe it's a much more specialised and focused area. The project itself, one of the projects itself, is around the former Bridgewater Hospital and the approach to creating a health and social care centre of excellence. We don't believe that the SCAPE framework is the right way to go with this, so we've taken the approach that we're breaking down the procurement into smaller chunks. So there's 3 specific areas we'll be going forward with. The first is around kind of that kind of project lead, which you will write the bid, produce an outline business case as well, and act as a critical friend, really pulling all of the partners together, making sure we're all going in the right direction. The second procurement will be around the creation of an evidence base and justifying the need, which is a huge part of any submission to government as well. So that's something we really need to be focused on. And then the final element is around the kind of early design and feasibility work and costings as well, because again, with that, we need to be able to submit this to government as part of the funding submission as well. As with the James Heapy constituency, it's a mix of funding as well. So we'll be looking at using the Welcome Back Fund, the COVID outbreak mitigation funding, and so it's a blended approach to kind of to moving forward with it. I'm conscious of time. I'm absolutely happy to go into a bit more detail on the projects themselves, but I really just wanted to provide a kind of an overview in terms of how we are moving forward in light of the fact that the Community Renewal Fund was not successful. So, like I said, happy to be guided by yourselves. If you would like more detail, I can go into it, and if not, then happy to take things offline as well if people have any questions.
Yeah, and thank you very much for that offer. I think most members are aware of the projects and the proposals that we put forward in the past, and I'm just grateful that we're actually still managing to push forward with a number of those in light of the missing funding at the moment. Members, any comments or questions? Or Mr. Bamsey?
Thank you, Leader. Just to add to what you've said, indeed, Nathaniel, I think what's being showed here is being agile and responding to circumstances, because what we really need is a substantial momentum to hit the levelling up bid. Spring deadline, because in spring can mean a great deal, so we do really need to be ready for it. And I think what's been the significant confirmation of lesson through the levelling up bids that have been successful to date is the degree of preparedness you need to have to be successful. So it is right that we do that. As an instance of the sort of work we're doing, we had a very positive conversation with ward members in Highbridge yesterday, for example, where we've confirmed this approach with them, and they seem very content. So it's very much maintaining momentum. So thank you, Leader, for your support.
Thank you. Members, any members' comments or questions? No. In that case, the recommendations, note and to approve option 1 are before you. Any absenters? Any other comment? No. In that case, Mr. Melchiorish.
Thank you very much, Leader. So that was a unanimous recommendation for you to confirm that you're happy to support the 2 recommendations in the report.
Yeah, thank you, and I'm happy to do that. And thank you very much, Nathaniel, for all the work you've done on this. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Yeah, well done, Nathaniel.
Thank you, everyone. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Right. Right. Subject to members' approval now, I wish to propose postponement of the final item on our agenda, because I understand that there will be some further work done and it will be brought back to us as soon as it possibly can, for us to make a decision. Is that right, Mr. Brown?
Indeed, thank you, Leader. Yeah, we just need to make sure that we've covered all the options, so we'll bring this back to the next executive.
Right. In that case, I'll put that to members. Are you happy for the postponement? Please say yes or no.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
I think that's it then. Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Melchiorish.
Yes, Leader, that is clearly agreed by and a recommendation. So we'll remove that from the agenda now and push that through to the meeting. The next available meeting will be the 22nd of December.
Okay, right, noted. Thank you very much then, members. There being no further business, I now thank you for your attendance and declare the meeting closed.